It's the Security Weekly News, and I'm back, and it's episode 333. Dun, dun, dun. It's also Friday the 13th of October, 2023. Dun, dun, dun. We got Microsoft, Seroxenrat, Smart Links, which kind of sounds like AI-enabled sausages, which would be really weird. It's like the sausages that eat you. I don't know. Vogons, ToddyCAT, ShellBot, hidden servers, Aaran Leyland, and more on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. AI, accelerated cloud adoption, and hybrid work are fundamentally shifting how business gets done. The old way of securing your people, apps, and data doesn't work and scale anymore. To stay ahead, today's organizations need to reimagine their security and networking infrastructure with a cloud-first, unified SASE architecture. Join Palo Alto Networks and leading technologists from across the globe for SASE Converge 2023, a two-day virtual experience, November 15th and 16th. Revealing how SASE powered by advanced AI can drive better security and networking outcomes. Register today at securityweekly.com/Palo Alto.
Hi folks, I'm Adrian Sanabria, the host of Enterprise Security Weekly. Every week, we interview the most interesting folks we can find talking about the most pressing cybersecurity issues and challenges facing the enterprise today. Myself and my co-hosts have each been in the industry for decades, long enough to see the patterns in the industry and explore where trends are going. In addition to enterprise challenges, we also follow the vendor space, the most interesting security startups emerging, technology and product trends, all of the most interesting funding and acquisition announcements. Finally, we love to discuss the latest trends in tech and how they'll impact cybersecurity. If you're wondering how the latest in AI, quantum computing, cloud, and DevOps is going to impact security a few years down the road, you should follow the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast.
All right, welcome to the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. So it's 13/10/23, and it's episode 333. So that adds up to 19, or it could be 379. I don't know, depends on how you add it. Is that a portent of doom? Is it a good omen? I don't know. Is it horror? Well, let me tell you this. If you ever Google that, you'll be sorry. And people are absolutely insane. I actually did it. People are actually insane. I mean, is 19 the number of sips of water the god Enki drank before he set about creating all humankind with the god Ninki? I mean, those two, let me tell you, they got busy. But there's 19 is a sacred number. I mean, I saw that. It was like people saying it was a sacred number. If you don't, you don't follow the banner of the 19, well, that's on you, and Enki will cast you out into eternal darkness. It also appears to be the number of bottles we have sitting on the bar. Maybe it's a good day to bet it all on red 19 at roulette. I mean, that'd be interesting. 19 years of bad luck for breaking a champagne glass while holding a civet in your left hand. If you believe in things you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. And there was a news show to do. I think I got carried away with all weird numerology. Thanks to all my new friends in Miami. It was good seeing you all, despite the iguanas and the heat. But it was nice seeing everybody. All right. Microsoft announced a new AI bug bounty program that is based on the AI-driven Bing experience. It sounds like marketing. And the rewards on this one go as high as $15,000 per bug. The AI-powered Bing experience, you have to say it that way or it gets angry. And you don't want to get it angry, let me tell you, because the AI-powered Bing experience can get really nasty at times. But is the first in-scope product in this new bug bounty program. So vulnerabilities can be submitted for Bing.com in the browser, the AI-powered Bing integration in Microsoft Edge, including Bing Chat for Enterprise, the AI-powered Bing integration in the Microsoft Start app, and the AI-powered Bing integration in the Skype mobile app. It's open season on AI-powered Bing, which I've already said way too many times. The awards range from $2,000 to $15,000 based on, there's a big table in the article that shows you what they're looking for and how much you get paid for each one. Microsoft did recently say it had paid $13.8 million in rewards to 345 different security researchers worldwide who had reported 1,180 vulnerabilities across 17 different bug bounty programs. Add all those numbers up real quick and see what you get. I bet it's a sacred number. But there are links to all those program guides and how you can do it, so get in there and get cracking, go for it. AI-empowered Bing bounties or whatever. Well, I like this headline because when I saw it, it kind of sounded like a foreign language. So listen to this. Here's the headline. Malicious Solana KuCoin packages infect NuGet devs with SeroxenRAT. I was like, I did actually, after I sort of parsed it, went, oh, okay, I think I know what most of that is. But that's a headline. But anyway, what does it all mean? Well, NuGet, if you don't know, is an open source package manager. And it's a software distribution system that operates package hosting servers to enable users to download and use them for their development projects. So a lot like GitHub, PyPy, all these other kind of things that are just like that. The malicious packages were uploaded onto NuGet. And I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced like NuGet, like that gooey stuff you buy in French gas stations, or that comes in candy bars, or it's like NuGet, like, it's better than old get, meet the NuGet, same as the old get kind of stuff. But anyway, the packages were uploaded by somebody named Disty, and Phylum Research found them. All of the 6 packages in the Disty repository have an XML file that downloads a file called x.bin, which is not a binary file necessarily. It's an obfuscated batch file that does, bad things. So all these packages look like current crypto projects, and so most of them even have the official logo of the project and so forth. There was one for Kraken Exchange, KuCoinExchange.net, Solana Wallet, Modern.WinForm, Monero, and Discord's RPC. Some of these had, according to the site, more than 600,000 downloads, and the repositories were still active on NuGet as of yesterday. Now, the article went on to say the downloads are probably inflated, and I mean, if I was doing this, my script would download this stuff a quadrillion times to make it look legit, right? Because you look at something and you go, wow, nobody's ever downloaded this, or it's got 1 star, so then you go look at one that's got 100,000 5-star reviews, and that were all written by a guy named Sid in Cleveland, Ohio. But nevertheless, all these packages have 2 PowerShell scripts in them which execute CMD and batch files while they're installing. So once it runs, a file gets downloaded from an external URL and it's saved with .cmd as an extension in the temp directory, and then it executes. Nothing gets displayed on the screen, so it's just one of those black screens in the background. And what it does is it grabs that x.bin file, which has over 12,000 lines in it, but and what that is it's obfuscated executable stuff, but mostly it runs another PowerShell script that then uses parts of the .cmd file. The final script reads from the CMD file to decrypt and decompress the payload, which is actually in the xbin file. So it's just this obfuscation stuff, and that's descrambling it and pulling out the executable and assembling it. And the final product that gets assembled, SeroxenRAT. So Saracen is marketed as a legit program, like a radar detector, to protect yourself from radar. Yeah, but this is a rat that's, hey, you need a way to access your systems remotely. This is it. You can get it for $15 a month, or a single lifetime purchase of $60. And if you call before midnight, you get this collection of dancing hula girl dashboard magnets. But AT&T said that SeroxenRAT is growing in popularity because it has a low detection rate, it can vaguely be perceived as legitimate, and it's a very, very powerful tool. So be careful when you download things from these online repositories, because they can be poisoned very easily. And if you don't look at what you've downloaded and you just embed it, you may just have installed something like SeroxenRAT. And you probably won't see that happen while it's going on. Well, there's been a resurgence of phishing campaigns which are using LinkedIn smart links. The campaign is targeting Microsoft Office credentials and was reported by Cofins in a blog post on the 11th. Cofense said that smart links are nothing new, and they're not, but they found an anomaly where more than 800 emails with various subject themes were reaching user inboxes in multiple industries, but mostly targeting finance and manufacturing. And those contained 80 unique LinkedIn smart links. Now, if you don't know what a smart link is in LinkedIn, it's basically a component of LinkedIn that you have to have LinkedIn team or business accounts, and that's the ones you have to pay for. And then that's connected to LinkedIn Sales Navigator services. The tool itself is used to deliver content, so they put a link in there that comes essentially from LinkedIn, but it's driving content, and of course it tracks engagement metrics and all that kind of stuff. Well, Cofense reported on this type of attack back in 2022 when they saw smart links being used to bypass security email gateways, because the security email gateways were seeing a LinkedIn connection. The smart link is so obfuscated that you can't really tell what it is, and it was letting them through. Well, Cofense said they first started seeing these attacks back in 2021, but basically the smart link is a legitimate looking type link that when somebody scrolls over it, it's got LinkedIn attached to it. It shows that it's going to LinkedIn, but there's a big long string on the end of it, and it opens a page. You don't know where the page could be because it's a redirect, and then that page looks legit, but it's really just trying to get your Microsoft Office credentials. There is a link to that whole blog post if you want the full-blown explanation where they walk you through exactly how this worked and so forth. It's a pretty interesting blog post, really. How do you beat this? It's really tough. I mean, I got a thing this morning from Microsoft Teams that was inviting me to a meeting I'd never heard of from a person I'd never met. And and it didn't have any information on it. It had a big, long, creepy link on the Teams thing. And I was like, is this phishing? I had to call somebody and say, is this legit? And they said, oh, yeah, it is. And I'm like, wow, I thought it was trying to fake me out. But anyway, to beat all this stuff, multi-factor, train your users and so forth. Will that beat it? Well, we hope so. But SlashNext said they had seen triple-digit percentage increases in spear phishing credential theft this year, and that this is, of course, allowing these access brokers who are selling access to various networks. So when you want to attack somebody, you say, hey, I don't like IBM, and you go pay somebody, and they give you credentials that will allow you to get in the network. I think as we move closer to single sign-on operations, and we see that all the time, the move towards single sign-on, this, of course, amplifies the risk of all this just exponentially. With every new outbreak of war, we see indication of the kind of future war that we've all been dreading for a long time. I mean, maybe not Terminators yet, but, regardless, we're seeing a lot of now sort of blowback and over blowback, or whatever you want to call it, from these various wars. Cyber warfare can take a lot of different forms, and it's certainly expected that any conflict is probably going to have cyber warfare components attached to it. Whether it's people using AI-enabled drones, or it's people using misinformation, disinformation attacks, credential stealing attacks, and so on. But we are seeing more outbreaks which involve cyber activists and cyber mercenaries being used to target the various sides in different conflicts, including the current Israel-Hamas conflict that is going on over there. Sorry to friends on all sides of that. I mean, what a nightmare. But we saw in this conflict now denial of service attacks being run, records theft, disruption, and so forth. All that stuff's going on in heavy rotation and showing no signs of slowing down. And, of course, you can mix all that in with things like Pegasus and Predator, where governments are then targeting people that they want to track and manipulate. And, again, I don't insert whatever side you support here, because it's on all sides. We've seen misinformation, threats, imagery, espionage, infrastructure disruption, and all possibilities. We've seen that in the Ukraine. We're continuing to see that all across here. This article basically outlines some of the threats and encourages all of us to be more vigilant. Even if we're not involved directly in a conflict, you may end up getting perceived to be involved, or it may just be, collateral damage. But I think phishing and disinformation are the most likely things that your people are maybe indirectly involved in, and we're all indirectly involved whether we want to be or not. But we're going to see all that, especially in certain industries. Espionage is heavy targeting on certain industries and so forth, but all this is going to be large threats going forward. Iran has been known to attack health sector, groups because they're trying to make a point. Activist mercenaries are joining all this stuff to get involved. I guess the takeaway here is that you need to be more aware than ever, And if you directly get, even close to these conflicts, or if your operations, you're selling products in an area that's being attacked, you may be a very large target for these activists and mercenaries. But peripherals may also be targeted. Activists may go after an organization just because a professor published a blog post that said Vogon poetry, not so bad. If Vogon poetry is not so bad, you've got activists on both sides of that equation. So in each of those conflicts, besides all the horrors of kinetic warfare, as they say now, people killing other people and children being blown up and whatever, all this creates new threat vectors for your organization. Even if you just make cardboard boxes in Hapshat, Indiana, but you've got an employee who's posting on a blog somewhere or doing a podcast and saying, I don't support the Vogons one bit. And I'm using Vogons not to make light of the wars that are going on, but just because I don't want to get in the middle of all that either. But, a single post can result in heavy targeting of your organization. So I'm not telling you to oppress people or repress people or anything else, but hey, it's a scary business right now. ToddyCAT has been linked to a new set of tools that are designed for data exfiltration. This particular crew is listed as an advanced persistent threat, so I guess that means you've made it, once they list you that way. Kaspersky first reported on these guys last year and linked them to high-profile targeting in Europe and Asia for at least the past 3 years. The group primarily used Ninja Trojan and another backdoor called Samurai, but now Kaspersky's uncovered a whole new set of malicious tools that they designed that were allowing them to achieve persistence, conduct file operations, and load additional payloads at runtime. The collection has loaders that can launch Ninja Trojan, because that's one of their main things, as a second stage, but these were basically, initial tools, and they have a tool called Lofisa, I don't know how to say it, but Lofise, that finds and collects files of interest on the system. They have a Dropbox tool that uploads all the stolen data, and a tool called PCXter that exfiltrates archive files they find to Microsoft OneDrive, I guess, so they can try to break them later. ToddyCAT has been observed using custom scripts for data collection, using passive backdoors that receive UDP commands, Cobalt Strike, and so forth. But Checkpoint did reveal earlier this year that government and telecom industries in Asia had been targeted as a part of an ongoing campaign since 2021, and that the ToddyCAT group uses a lot of disposable malware so that they're not doing the same thing every time, and that helps them evade detection and deliver next stage attack. They said these attacks have been used to, with infrastructure that overlaps with everything being used by ToddyCAT. So it sounds like they're a bigger APT maybe than people thought in the first place, or maybe they have a lot of different subsidiaries, a la Clop or something like that. So hard to say right now, but they're a group to keep an eye on. ShellBot is leveraging up addresses. I love this story. And leveraging up addresses that are converted into HEX to infiltrate poorly managed Linux SSH servers and deploy distributed denial of service malware. You had me at HEX. You didn't even need the rest of the headline. Basically, this is a kind of an attack that they've been doing for a while, but now the IP is in hex instead of decimal. And this is very interesting to me, but ShellBot is also called PearlBot, and it basically uses a dictionary attack on these SSHD servers. And, and of course, a lot of people don't protect that kind of stuff. It's an old infrastructure. They have password, maybe the root password is Tour or Gandalf or, one of those kind of things. But this thing can then deliver distributed denial of service staging tools or crypto miners. It is written in Perl. But the new twist that they were pointing out with this article was that instead of using IP addresses or, of course, DNS domain names, they were using hex as an IP address, which is basically the oldest trick in the protocol. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I always talk to my students about it. If you take that 32-bit IP address that's listed in 4 decimal octets and convert the whole thing to 32-bit binary, so you take the 4 8-bit octets, convert each one to binary, and then take all the dots out and make a 32-bit number in binary, and you convert that to decimal, you can use that in lieu of the IP address that's in the protocol. You can just type HTTP in that decimal number, and it works. Now, this was how those pesky teens were getting around NetNanny back in the day, because NetNanny was basically domain name based, and the teens studied the protocol and figured out a way to get around it. And, you can do the same thing in hex, because that's also supported, because it supports any number. I guess you could do it in octal too. or whatever, that I don't know if it supports anything besides decimal, hex, and octal. But basically, if you just put a 0x in front of it after HTTPS, it basically will take you to whatever that IP address is. So convert it to binary, take out all the dots, and then write it all out with HTTPS in front of it with 0x, and voila, you're in. I mean, this is basically a way to beat simple tools that block things based on their DNS entries rather than their IP addresses. So the kids at school pinged penthouse.com, got the IP, tried that, NetNanny blocked it again, and it blocked the IP, but then they converted the IP to a 32-bit decimal number, and guess what? They got to the site. I mean, I couldn't decide if the school should give them a bug bounty or they should give them detention. They did get detention, I think. But it might be time to review your border control tools and make sure that, you know, you are monitoring to ensure you're not just blocking things by their names or their decimal IPs, and that you can block them on all these different levels. It's pretty easy to test. Just, you know, convert something and see if it works. I mean, you just have to put all the hex nibbles in there and you're ready to go. I tested it this morning on a site that I could go to. It worked just fine. I was able to get to the site. Now, we all know this is possible, but there are now examples of voice cloning being used by AI in elections in Slovakia. This was the documentation here. The voice of the Progressive Party leader was being used to describe a scheme to rig the vote. So it was supposedly captured, you know, a captured voice recording. They were describing a scheme where they're going to rig the vote, they're going to bribe officials and election officials and all this kind of stuff. And of course, there was a UK Labour Party member that got supposedly caught on tape swearing and berating one of their staff that was posted up on Twitter. Sorry, I refuse to say X, formerly called Twitter. I'm just not saying that. I didn't like it when Prince did it either, and I love Prince, but I did not like when it was like the artist formerly known as Prince. Like, no, I'm just going to call him Prince. But it's annoying. But fact-checking found that both of these clips, the one in Slovakia and the one in the UK, were both fakes. Tom Hanks sent out a warning recently that said someone was using his voice to sell dental plans, and, you know, theoretically that he was endorsing them. I don't know why you'd rely on an actor to tell you what dental plan to choose, but people do. You know, it's just like why some sports figure can tell you to drink this energy drink. I'm like, okay, you know, maybe not. But anyway, there was a TikTok this summer that used an AI narrator to show news reports that were fake that linked former President Obama to the death of his personal chef. And I've seen other ones where they've got, you know, somebody, a famous voice or whatever, saying all kinds of different things about some politician. So there is a movement in the U.S. on a bill called the No Fakes Act, which would penalize people for producing or distributing an AI-generated replica of someone in an audio, visual, or voice recording without their consent, which is good. I probably won't pass because the lobbyists will go right after it. But, you know, that isn't going to stop it anyway. So remember, altering your voice and asking the school principal if they had Sir Walter Raleigh in a can, you know, remember that kind of stuff? You know, you bought something out of the back of a comic book or at Radio Shack and you disguise your voice. No, I don't remember that stuff either. It never happened. But this is a big deal. More and more examples of disinformation or just misuse of this tech are being reported constantly and around elections, around wars and so forth. And then, of course, just general hucksterism. It's pretty scary stuff. The article is a good thing you could distribute to your people. It's written, you know, in a way that all your, you know, non-tech people could read it just fine. Well, the highway's jammed with broken heroes on a last chance power drive, and one of those heroes stepping out over the line is Aaran Leyland. And also, thanks for doing the news on Tuesday, Aaron. Hi.
Thanks, Dr. Doug. Good to see you back. Okay, I'm going to dive right in this week. So due to the extensive coverage of similar topics of hacktivism in the current wars and conflicts, I brought you not one but 7 articles today. At least that's the amount that I've entered in the show notes, although I'm definitely sure over the last week I've read many more. So today is warranting a more serious tone from me, and I hope you agree that it's warranted. Sort of, I personally feel a change to the business of hacktivism in a way that should at very least warrant attention from us, the cybersecurity professionals. So most call it hacktivism, but mostly what we are talking about today is global cyber terrorism, which falls generally below the threshold to elicit a kinetic response. In other words, having bombs dropped on them. But at the end of the day, maybe that's only time. The ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, along with war in Ukraine and notable others, while inflicting tangible kinetic destruction, has unfolded a secondary insidious battlefield in the digital realm, casting a daunting shadow upon the global cybersecurity landscape. So the cyber onslaught intertwining with physical conflict presents a paradigm where hacktivism, or as I'm calling it, global cybersecurity terrorism, that along with disinformation campaigns and the compromise of critical infrastructures blend into a chaotic digital war zone, obviously traversing beyond regional borders and enveloping international cybersecurity considerations. In this new digital warfare age, numerous hacktivist entities, such as the notorious Anonymous Sudan and Killnet, have amplified their cyber activities with divergent motives and alignments, further complicating the cybersecurity scene. Surprisingly, the entities at times flout the position of their respective nations, exposing an entangled web of hacktivist motivations that oscillate between political, ideological, and chaos instigation intents. While the International Committee of the Red Cross, as reported on this show recently, endeavors to institutionalize ethical cyber warfare norms, adherence and enforcement remain stuck in skepticism and logical impracticalities. This foretells to me a murky future wherein the safeguarding of cyber ethics amidst warfare may be perennially besieged by the radical motivations of non-state actors. The disinformation thunderstorm inundating Platform X, formerly known as Twitter, love it, Doug, feel the same, and other social media corridors embattles journalistic integrity and hinders AUSINT practitioners, that's open source intelligence. The deliberate obfuscation of truths via manipulated imagery and strategically repurposed content, especially when algorithmically propagated and endorsed by influencers of the caliber of Elon Musk. Elon, you must do better. Crafts an insurmountable mountain of falsehoods. With AUSINT researchers navigating a veritable minefield of information or disinformation, the requisite for enhancing verification processes and critically examining platform governance models becomes inescapably apparent. The necessity to comprehend and mitigate the digital force, potentially steering global narratives and geopolitical interplays during critical events, underpins the role of cybersecurity in safeguarding informational veracity. That's what we all need. We just need more veracity, to be honest. Noteworthy among the digital onslaughts are cyber attacks against life-critical infrastructures, especially within the health sector, which we talk about often. The penetration of ICS and SCADA systems, that's industrial control systems and supervisory control and data acquisition systems, and interruptions at healthcare institutions like the assault on the Tel Aviv Soraski Medical Center. These illuminate the harrowing potential for cyber warfare to exacerbate, if I could say it properly, humanitarian crisis during physical conflicts. The fusion of digital and physical warfare underscores an exigent imperative, the reinforcement of cybersecurity defenses amidst geopolitical instability, ensuring the continuance of critical services and safeguarding vulnerable populations from collateral digital impacts on all sides. The existing cyber warfare scenario isn't confined to the direct conflict parties, but encompasses a larger global cadre of cyber actors deploying an arsenal of DDoS attacks, data breaches, and other malicious operations, which Doug spoke about earlier. against varied digital assets. These activities not only destabilize governmental and media communication infrastructures, but also increase the diffusion of panic and misinformation, thereby spiraling the conflict into further chaos. Just what we need. Considering the involvement of various global entities and hacktivist factions with disparate, occasionally opaque objectives, us, the cybersecurity professionals, grapple with an unpredictable and multi-fronted digital background. So navigating the confusing waves of this complex digital warfare necessitates an evolution in global cybersecurity perspectives, strategies, and collaborations. The anticipative planning against a broadened threat landscape, inclusive of many cyber attack vectors and varied actors, demands an unprecedented alliance among cybersecurity professionals and entities worldwide. Critical introspections into the governance of information dissemination platforms and their impact on geopolitical discourses and public perceptions are paramount. An enhanced collaborative approach towards verifying, securing, and if necessary, also countering information, coupled with the strengthening of cyber defenses, underpins the forthcoming strategies required to navigate intertwined physical-digital conflict landscapes. So, in conclusion, the interwoven nature of kinetic and digital warfare, as unveiled in Israel-Hamas conflict, along with Ukraine, necessitates a recalibrated, holistic approach towards understanding, mitigating, and potentially guiding the trajectories of future geopolitical conflicts. A unified global cybersecurity strategy, intertwining ethical considerations, anticipative threat intelligence, and collaborative defense mechanisms is pivotal to securing the intricate tapestry of global security in an era where digital physical conflicts are inextricably entwined. So as I like to give answers to problems, it's important to understand that addressing hacktivism is particularly challenging due to the often politicalized and decentralized, that's easy for you to say, nature of such activities, ensuring cybersecurity, particularly in critical sectors, while managing a complex and nuanced threat landscape requires a robust, adaptable, and globally aware strategy. The technical means to mitigate hacktivism should therefore be complemented by a strategic, organizational, and international approach to cybersecurity. Never think that because you're not the main target of hacktivists, that it will not spill over into your estate. I promise you it will. If you think there are not vulnerabilities kicking about of the caliber of Eternal Blue and that family, you will be proven incorrect. Don't you just love our industry? Okay, back to you in the studio, Dr. Doug, who I hope will bring the show out on a lighter tone, and I will be back on Tuesday standing in for Jason Wood.
We're sad now.
Sad. Make us happy, Doug.
I know. I'm too sad. I'm gonna have to change the final story. It's like, well, my kitten died this morning. Not really. Please, yeah. People get really worked up about that. All right, and finally, thanks, Aaron. And finally, this story sounded to me like the time somebody called me and said my number was written on a Vax node box that was found in a closet still connected to the local network and still running about 10 years after I'd last been in that closet, and that number was no longer working, but they tracked it down. I mean, I was like, what? But anyway, this story was from this, it's a column that's a pretty, I like this column. It's called On Call, and it's in the Register, and they basically have people tell tech support stories, which is, and they're a lot nicer than the old bastard operator from hell stuff, even though that I like that too. But basically, this person that was telling the story was called Rick, R-I-K. They said it was, I guess, a pseudonym, but Rick was working IT support in a large company in the UK that did financial trading and ran into a platform that was hosting a real-time graph that was used to inform the traders of some kind of variable in the market. They didn't get into all the grim details of it, but they were told the platform had problems and that it hadn't been updated in 2 decades. And they also found that the code was running across a single Sun Spark Station 2 and a PC. Yay! All right, Spark Station, you go, girl. But somebody had written a driver for a general purpose interface bus and then sucked this variable in and was using a Java HTTP servlet to read and share it across these. I guess the traders could just log into it. And the traders used it. But they found that it would crash it would shut down regularly, and they weren't sure why, and they had to restart it. But they found that at some point the boxes that were hosting this had been moved into a data center, but they weren't actually connected to the power source. They were just sort of sitting in the corner, and that the power for them had been snaked underneath a floor platform and pulled out through a wall and plugged into a wall socket, like a regular old wall socket that was being used for vacuum cleaners when the cleaning crew came in. And so the app failed at the same time every week. And when and of course it was when the cleaners came in, I guess they unplugged it and plugged their vacuum cleaners in. But so they finally moved it to a new platform and such. And they were talking about how that this thing had generated millions and millions of pounds of revenue for these traders over the years. But it was just written by some tech guy, sort of informally. And, and I guess my point of bringing it up to you was, do you have this stuff hiding in your organization? You would be surprised how often I found these kind of things. Like we found an old pizza box server that was laying on the floor of a closet covered with gear in a firehouse. It didn't have a keyboard or a monitor, but it was on. And we found out it was supporting an email server. And it was just sitting there, and it had been plugged in. It had been sitting there for years and years and so forth. I found an email server. I had in a steam tunnel once that was still running a long time after that I had put it there. I didn't want anybody to find it, so I put it in the steam tunnel because we were doing experiments with it. But then I found out years later it was still running. But don't let that haunt your dreams or anything, right? Well, that's the news. Thanks, Aaron. Enjoy Friday the 13th, and I will see you next week on the Security Weekly News.